everyone, and welcome. I'm Barbara Tien with Project Kin, and it's my delight to introduce you today to Kathy Stone as part of our monthly series, Kathy's Corner. Kathy has been with us since the very beginning of Project Kin and really speaks to the core challenge for family historians dealing with all of those artifacts, those photographs, documents, and materials that we've received passed down through the ancestors, and trying to understand what they are, what they mean, what to do with them, how to preserve them, how to digitize them, how to organize what you've done. And today we have a very special episode. So you can go back into the archives at projectkin.org/Kathy's Corner and see our past episodes. But today's episode is going to be a bit more interactive. So Kathy, tell us about what's coming today.
Well, we talked about I think what gave us the idea is before Project Live, we were just, Barbara and I were chatting, and I was saying, well, we did copyright, we did all the technical, the identifying things in photos in previous Project Kins. We've went through all of the 8 steps, starting at the beginning up till now. And I said, what else should we talk about? And then I mentioned that I had overwhelmed myself in my digitizing, and it all started with a little survey that appeared, um, believe it or not, by Scan Cafe, I believe, who conducted it of their customers, and they had asked how many people had scanned their photos, and that one was a higher percentage. I can't remember. We'd have to go backwards and find the percentages, and then how many people had looked at their photos at all, and they were quite shocking in that a lot of people never looked at them even. And then it got me thinking, well, why not? Why are we not? So I did a little survey myself, and which, if you could still answer if you want, it's in Kathy's core. Kathy's coaching is where the survey was. And it just, I asked just basically how many have digitized their photos, which again, amongst this community is a lot of people, and how many had organized them, the stuff you digitized. And that turned out to be a very much lower percentage than everyone who'd had them digitized. And I thought, okay, well, that kind of follows with what I'm trying to sort out now, because I mentioned, I think at the beginning of the view from Kathy's Corner Live, I said, have kind of overwhelmed myself by creating a bit of a mess with all my digitization, and for a number of different reasons, which I'll go through some of those reasons, but it occurred to me that maybe that's why other people get overwhelmed, is because I set off on a mission to digitize everything, and I've still got more stuff to digitize, but I got quite a large chunk done. I've stuck on the memorabilia. I haven't done it yet. But I said the other day on Sunday, I said, unless more emerge from somewhere in my house, I've now digitized all the negatives, or they're being digitized right now, all of the negatives that I had in my possession. There's some missing that I think got thrown away at some point, or they're going to emerge somewhere in the house. But I've looked through everywhere, so I think that's all done. But now I have this interim, let's call it a mess. Not as much of a mess as it was when I didn't know what it was, but I've got a bit of a mess now, and I'm a little overwhelmed with all the stuff I've digitized. So I thought, let's talk about that, and maybe others who are in that place. And I think I sent out a little post with some questions for you to think about beforehand. And I'll come back to those questions in a minute. But I thought, in talking with Barbara, I thought we need to go back and define what a project is, because I think what led me down the wrong road in my own organizing was not being clear in my mind on what a project was, and maybe mixing up what kind of projects we want to talk about here, and projects to do with our photos, and a project that I might have started to treat, honestly, I started to treat my digitization as the project. And that would be okay, but that goes back into, now I'm overwhelmed, because as we talked about from the beginning of Project Kin, sometimes the project approach is a better way to avoid overwhelming ourselves. So I've sort of taken a step back, and I'll talk a little bit, because it's always, if someone else can learn from my mistakes, that's great, about where I think where I misstepped. Yeah, I think that's the word. And how I'm going to dig myself out of this problem now so I can get back working on my projects. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, but I'll throw it open. I'm going to read you something. And I took this off, I don't know, I think it was the Project Kin website. When we started, a Project Kin subscriber suggested the term projects precisely because it is all encompassing. From poetry to film, there were already countless ways to tell a story. With the advent of media rich creative tools, there are now 10,000 forms too. The trick is to select among those options to capture, preserve, and share your story with the people whom it will matter most. Very well said, Barbara. So I looked up what a project meant, and it can mean a whole bunch of different things. It's generally temporary. It's not something you're doing forever. It has a goal, a beginning, and an end, and steps and resources in between, and it may be long or short. And I think where the approach we've taken all along with Project Kin, and what I started doing and then sort of fell off the road there because I didn't clarify what my project was to start with. I had a list of projects, but I didn't really clarify which one I was working on. And so I've taken a few steps back to look at what is the difference between a project and and an overwhelming goal like I'm going to digitize all my family photos. That could be considered a project, but I think for our purposes and what we've talked about many, many times is that if we start off with that as our goal, we're probably not going to get much done because it's so overwhelming. It's such a big thing to tackle. And we've talked in Project Kin about let's pick a project that isn't something like digitize my photos. Let's pick a project that's something like let's make the the poster Linda made of her, I think it was your grandmother's diary, and clips out of the diary and with photos. That was a project. And I think that's where I would differentiate between the kind of projects we want to talk about for our photos versus a project being I'm digitizing all my photos or I'm going to organize all my photos. Barbara.
As you're describing this, I'm really struck thinking back on my experience in manufacturing. And what you're describing is the difference between, and I love that idea of a specific goal, a beginning and the end. And I kind of missed your other points. I like that. But it also reminds me that the difference between that and a ongoing process of getting stuff digitized whenever you find it, that to me is like an operational discipline. And that is different than the specific project is getting caught up, getting to a point that everything else is just about operationalizing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that's the clarity that I lost along the way. What does everyone else though? What does project mean to you?
Yeah, I come at it, well, from a direction that Barbara will recognize, but um, a formal project management discipline. In that you have an overarching program. That's your digitizing everything. Your project may be, digitizing this one family's, set of photographs. You break it up into chunks,
Mm-hmm.
and then you break the project into chunks. So you've got, you've got steps along the way, and that helps keep you organized. If you can check off, okay, I've done this little subset. They're all digitized. I've put them in wherever I'm going to archive them, and I don't have to worry about those anymore. Um, that's the way well, in the IT world, we did all of our projects. You would have a big program and it may last for years.
Mm-hmm.
But then you'll break your projects down into something to last 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, whatever time period that needs. And I think it helps you focus in rather than getting overwhelmed by the stack of 5,000 photographs sitting there waiting to
Mm-hmm.
go through the scanner.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
I
right.
like
And
this distinction too, because right now, as a professional, we take on a client as a project, and we do all those project management steps. We set the goals and identify all the steps. And I think when I first started out, I thought, well, that's great because someone's paying me, and the faster I get it done, the faster I get my money for doing it. And that's sort of what I'm doing as a job. but it's different than it's when it's just our own stuff. Like it doesn't become that overwhelming thing of let's do everything all at once. So because I'm finishing up finally, I've been finishing for years. I'm working right now on the digital organizing piece of the massive scanning project I did, and I was thinking, yeah, if a person had to do this with their own stuff that there was so much of, they'd give up because it's just, I'm working between 4 and 5 hours a day on this, and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is really not anywhere near as interesting as it was to dig through those boxes when I found everything to scan. Um, Transferring metadata is not something that excites me too much. So, um, Anne, or anyone else there, what is a project to you?
I can show you a project if that'll help. That's why I disappeared just now. This is a photo book that I made for my mum, and mum's really into our military photos. So inside, it's just a little book, but it's got, oh, I'll peep over the top. There you go. It's got all sorts of photos inside, just with a little bit of information about them. So this was the very first project I ever did, and it was 30 photos, which isn't a lot to digitize and to get organized. And mum absolutely loved the book, and I loved giving it to her. And I loved the fact that that part was not complete, you're never complete, but that I had this to show for it. And it's a real boost to actually make a product like this, to move on to the next one, and it inspires you to keep going.
I think that's the perfect example of what we're talking about in a project is something, and it's that it had a beginning and an end. You decided to make that book and you were going to focus on this particular topic, digitize those pictures, get them in the book and get the book made, and it's done now. So anybody else? So were you going to say something, Barbara?
I was just going to say, I do love the idea of describing a program, sort of a way of life, as Bill was just describing it. And that is not something that's a discipline, that's a program, that's a way of doing things that makes the ability to deliver more projects later easier. But the project itself has a beginning, maybe a middle, and an end, and it gives you that happy, joy moment of I did the thing, or I can go back and iterate and make it better another time or whatever else. Beautiful.
So I think that how we identify our projects and and what's involved in them will help us with the overwhelm. And that's something that's in, and I think if you haven't looked at that, the Kathy's Corner worksheet that we put together quite a long time ago, and I added more stuff to it today. So there you go. Never hurts to have another look at it. But I think what we identify the projects and plan them helps with the overwhelm. We go through what are the little things we need to do. I'm going to just try and share my screen quickly with, it's got to be there, this one. So this is similar to what I added to a new section on these Kathy's worksheet called, it's not called Project Blanket, it's called Project Plan on the main one. But one of my projects is I want to create a memory blanket for my kids. So we were all involved in scouting. My two boys and I were in scouting from when they were 5 until he finished high school. So we have in the scouting world and the guiding world too, you get badges for things you do, and we get a whole ton of badges and everything. And you get badges at camps and all sorts of stuff. And traditionally, you've sewn them onto a gray flannel blanket that becomes your scout blanket. And sometimes you cut a hole in it. And just for those of you who aren't in Canada, Scouts in Canada has boys and girls in it. That's how I got to be a leader in Scouts, is because we have both boys and girls in Scouts in Canada. But we are still follow Lord Baden-Powell's philosophies, and it's still an offshoot from the scouting world everywhere. But you have all sorts of things. We have our chapter badge, we have the council badge, we have the Canadian badge. I have service stripes that I got for the years I was involved. And my kids all have the badges they earned at each level for the different projects they did, as well as badges for going to camps. One of my boys, he was more into it than my other son. He went to several jamborees. And so he's got a ton of badges from jamborees. And so I've thought about, I am not, who's our sewer? Who does all the fabric projects?
Linda.
Linda. My mind for a
Linda
minute.
Haynes.
I'm not Linda. I am not a sewer. And so probably right now there's a couple flannel blankets somewhere downstairs with about 2 badges sewn on them. And then the rest are piled up. There's still a bunch on their shirts and their sashes because not my thing. So I got thinking the other day, I thought, well, what could I do? And I could put them in a book. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to make them blankets because you can make a digital blanket. And so I've broken that. That's the project. So my goal is to create a badge blanket for Bob and Mike, my 2 boys. And so I broke the steps down. The big ones are going to be to collect the badges, digitize them, design the blanket, and then print them. And so I set some sub steps down because I just started working this with a smaller chart, and I just made more things. So just adapt them as you need too. So I set a goal that I'm going to try and start by the 10th of August, and I'm going to have it finished by the end of September. So first I have to find all the badges. So I made some notes about where I think they are. They're still on our shirts hanging in the closets, which no longer fit my kids anymore because they're very old shirts. I've got to remove those badges from the shirts and from the sashes. I've got to sort them by person and put them in bags labeled by whose they are, because some of them, they didn't all earn the same badges. And I have special ones that they didn't get either as a leader. And then I need to iron them so they're flat so I can scan them. Then I'll have to flatbed scan them, edit the scans, choose and design my blanket. And I broke that into the steps of choosing how big of a blanket I want to make and then designing it. And I wrote down I'm going to design in Artisan because that's the software I use. And then I'm going to print the blanket. So that's the project. And I'm going to, if you think about it, it's related to the 8 steps that we talk about. So, and there's a couple other follow-up steps that I'll have to do, but the steps are there. I'm going to gather, finding all the badges. I'm going to digitize them. I'm going to do something with them, create the project, in this case, the blanket. And then I will put away, or we decide whether we're going to keep and archive those badges or get rid of them. And so that to me breaks down the steps of the project. Instead of having on my big long list, oh yeah, I need to digitize all those badges too, on my big long list of things to do. And I think it follows the steps of the 8 steps, maybe not all of them, but pretty close to all of them that we talk about in terms of your project, that we break it down into small things. And so, yes, so that was that. Oh, I'm going to stop sharing for now. So I did add that chart to the spreadsheet too in there that went through the 8 steps. But to me, that is the project. And that's kind of where I went wrong. And the questions I asked were, where's all my digital stuff? Is it organized? Can I find the things I need to do a project, depending on what my project is? Can I find the stuff I need? What steps do I need to take to organize it? Because I'm assuming the answer to my question is no, it is not organized, because that's sort of what turned up in the survey, that a lot of people did all the digitization, but it's not really organized, neatly organized in a way you can find stuff. And then my other questions were, what's left to digitize? And in my case, I mentioned already, I've got boxes from birth of my kid, well, even before I had a box of all my wedding stuff that's not digitized, like not the photos, those are done, but all the other stuff that goes with it, the guest book, the invitations, all that ephemera. And I've got the same thing for my kids, like they're going to be 29 this year. And I have a folder from every year of the stuff from school and scouts and whatever sports they were playing that goes beyond the pictures, and that's not done yet. So I've identified the stuff I've needed to do. And rather than saying, okay, I'm going to just sit down, because this just doesn't appeal to me remotely, sit down at the flatbed scanner and scan all those bins, because there's quite a few of them, I'd lose interest very quickly. But what I will do is, one of my other projects I'm working on is we're past baby books. We do have baby books for them now that were done traditionally, but now I'm working on digital books of their life, like all their stuff. And I have twins, if you wonder why I keep saying them. I have twins, and it was always important to me that they weren't considered one entity, that they were considered individuals, and I tried my hardest. I only dressed them the same if we were going on an airplane, because you get more help that way, if people can tell they're twins. But I wanted them to have so I'm making them their own books. Granted, a lot of stuff in them so far, because I'm not up to even to school yet, is the same. Like there's just only so many pictures, but I've tried to focus on each one in their book, and that'll keep on going as I go on, because they did mostly the same activities, but they shifted as they got older. They did different things. So now I'm working on. Don't laugh when you hear this. I'm working on 1999. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull out the folder and the memorabilia prior to 1999 is all digitized, and those albums were either done traditionally or digitally. And now I'm going to scan 1999's memorabilia, which is far less overwhelming than scanning those hundreds of all those boxes I have, so that I can work on 1999. And I'm an album maker. And when I say album maker, I may print them. It'll depend on what they want. It might be a digital album too. It may just exist only as a digital version, not a printed copy. So I use those terms interchangeably, but a lot of people say, "Oh, you're going to make that many albums?" But so that's how, to me now, I've changed my focus of the project to away from, man, I got to digitize all that memorabilia, which I do at some point, and I'm cheap. I paid somebody to digitize all my negatives and my photos, but it costs a lot of money to pay someone to do flatbed scanning. So just have to work on that a little bit at a time. But that's sort of my new approach, is to look at my projects and think, okay, and I can do more than one project at once, but let's take them as, what do I need to have done? And then gradually we're going to chip away at that overwhelming mountain of digitizing stuff, if that makes sense. And I think that was, and then the one last thing I'll say, and then I'll throw it open. We can talk about your projects and what's going on. I'm going to share my screen again and find where's my share button? There it is, share. I want to look at this one. So yeah, I'm in the same one. Okay, I want to go back to here. Hopefully that'll let you. Now, did it change for you? Okay, so this is what I call my scan conversion workflow checklist, which it just has Calgary Photo Solutions on it because I made it for this, but it's us. It's for my family. But what I did that I didn't do as a professional is I labeled all the boxes stuff was in, which was a good idea. It wasn't a bad idea. But I've got, if you can look at there, some of them are pretty broad categories. The 70s and 80s, for me, that's a pretty broad category. And now I have some items digitized, and I've got the digitized box number written here that was sent away, so I can hook it up to which file it's in, but it's in a separate file, digital file now. It's not, and that file is by that number, it's not broken down into those years. And so this started off to be very helpful, and now it's less than helpful, because I know a bunch of stuff was digitized, and then I have notes like I have to compare this box of photos to the ones I already sorted, because this might be a whole box full of duplicates again. And so this is less useful now than if I broke it down into and used, see, if nobody got an index card number, which I highly recommend, and I never did. Oops. If I break it down, that's those index cards I showed you. Barbara's going to grab hers, where I label the cards, or sorry, I put an index card on the group of photos and I give it a number, and then I can put that number on the digitized photos. I didn't do that. And now that I'm working on that clients, we did that. I did that very carefully, and it's coming in very handy, but I didn't do it. So So I think my way to fix this problem is going to be to, I got to share something different. Hang on. Let's see if I can find the last thing. There it is. So, are you seeing my handwriting?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? Uh, that's why I type things. And I
That
think
looks
the
like real work.
right-hand page is just, it picked up the scan, picked up this page behind it. But so this is all the envelopes that I put together for scanning. And if we look at them, I've got the year, they're all broken down. So this one big number that's on my sheet, or this whole pile of different pictures, are all actually broken down in my little notes. So I'm going to turn these notes into a neat and tidy spreadsheet so that I can then unite the pictures that are all digitized. Because when I get this back, I get a box back that's called 37 digitization order 37356. And if I'm lucky, they've put these words on it as a title. But it's in no order, and it's got to be sorted out. So I'm going to go back through and start indexing those scans. And a lot of these were negatives that were scanned, not prints. And so I want to match up prints and negatives and make sure that the prints are organized and have the same dates on them. But I'm not going to do this as a big, massive pile of stuff anymore. Stop. I'm going to do it as I work on each project to help with the overwhelm. I'm going to just do what I need to do for the next project. And obviously, each year of my boy's life is going to be a project, because I've got to work on, each year, a couple of years will be one project, maybe 2 years at a time. The album I'm working on now is 98, 99. So it's going to be, that's how I'm going to try and deal with this overwhelm and this digital mess I've made. And the other mess I've made is, let me think. There was something else I did that I thought I got to tell you that don't do this. Oh, I know what I wanted to show you. Here it is. I got to go back to that other spreadsheet. If I'd only done my spreadsheet properly, it would have been much better, eh?
We're going to subtitle this episode Kathy's Confessions.
Kathy's Confession Corner. Kathy's Corner Confession. Let me move all these over. But like I said, you can learn from my mistakes here. So one of the things that I did, and I'll confess I just did this, the digital image inventory. And this is really important because what's happened now is, in spite of my best intentions, I now have stuff digitized in a whole bunch of different places. And it's possible that some of it is duplicates. And so I've listed where this is similar to what I did with my physical, but now this is a list of all the stuff that's digitized. So I have a program called Historian that has about 40,000 photos in it. It goes from 1910 is the earliest photo up to 2024. There's gaps where there's no years in there, which is when I decided that I wasn't going to use that program anymore and was going to just use Windows folders. And they're not all organized, but this is a fairly robust program. It has facial recognition. I can adjust dates and stuff in it. So I may start using that. Then I have so that's on a drive. And all these are backed up. Like, that's the most important thing. These are all backed up. So this E drive is where all my family photos live. So I have a folder of my mom's family that I scanned, and I scanned the 40s to about 2006. And why I did that period was because one of my aunts had passed away and I was doing a memorial slideshow. And so, unlike all the other times where I pulled the pictures out of the organized pictures and just scanned the ones for the person who passed away, I just took my scanner and sat down and I said, I'm scanning everything now. So some of those might be in this 38,000 we have up here. Probably are. But we still have to sort them. I have another folder full of my husband's family's photos, which is another, so I've got about 5,500 in that one. Another couple thousand that I scanned from his mom. I have another album that it's not from 1963. It actually has 1,963 photos in it, which is an album I scanned for a cousin and kept all the photos out of that one for me. And then I have a very small amount of my dad's family because I think most of them are probably in one of these other folders, not in a folder dedicated. In one of my Forever accounts, I have what is current and all my digitization landed there in with my current photos. And current, I mean, say the last, I don't know, I go back to about um, probably 2018, 2017 is when I started putting all my phone photos in there. So that's another 28,000 photos and about 1.6, 100 gigabytes in there. And then I have a different Forever album. These are digital albums now, digital websites, put it that way. They're not actually organized into albums with Steve's family that I uploaded. And then I have another one with some of my mom's family that hasn't got much in it, but all of these that are in here need to eventually go into there too, once I sort through them. So this is a good place if you're overwhelmed to start, is make a list of where everything is. Stop the share now. Make a list of where everything is that you have in your digital organized, like, and we're more concerned with right now we're talking about what we've digitized in our, because we talk about family histories and everything. You can do that with your current digital stuff too, but make a list of where all that digitized stuff is. Is it on a hard drive? Is it on here? Is it online here? And that's the starting point to start getting rid of duplicate digital photos, because I have rescanned some of my photos from my grandfather because one of my cousins originally scanned them long time ago, like back in the 80s, with a flashy, probably cost her a fortune, Epson scanner. Yeah, kilobyte size photos back then. So I can do better with current equipment, but I don't necessarily need to keep the scans of the same photos. I don't want 6 digital copies of the same picture. So I need to look at where I have everything collected and start getting it all into one place so that I can eliminate all the duplicates and put order to it to get it properly sorted. So that's all the confessions I have for today on, I think anyway, I might think of more, but
I have a question. I have a question for you. So, I don't know this falls under confessions. Just putting that out there. One of the challenges I know many people have is that they produce something that is, let's call it a project, and it's a digital project, and it's delivered to the recipient. And you're very proud of yourself in that moment of the digital delivery. And then a year goes by, 2 years goes by, and yeah, maybe you had work in progress backed up, but do you have any kind of archived of those originals? Which I can't say that I always did in the past, and this is my confession. But do you have a centralized way that you capture all of the things that are essentially live product and is accessible to family members? Kind of like a website or maybe Forever or something?
Yeah, everything that I've done and I did traditional scrapbooks for a long time, and they've all been digitized, and they are sort of starting to form the legacy part of my Forever account. I look at it as I'm using Forever. I started using it a whole bunch of years ago, and they finally caught up with features I like that help, like facial recognition and things. So, and I just decided, I'm not saying that's the best out there, but I've decided I like what it is. I've got my favorite things about it. Happy to talk to anybody about that. And I'm not going to go with something like, I stopped chasing bright, shiny objects, because that's in a way, how I got that mess of digital stuff everywhere. Bright, shiny objects chasing. So I've decided that that's where our family legacy will live. And so far, what is in there that won't come back out, or there'll be, like, some of what's in there still needs the organizing done. It's not organized. Quite a bit of it is organized by year, but then I got to go through and pick the best pictures and delete, because I'm paying to store it. But all my traditional albums that have been digitized are all in my Forever, and they're in the year that they're all almost all my traditional albums that I have, didn't give away, are my own family albums. Like they're my kids, and they're all
Mhm.
in there year by year, and in there the whole album is in there as an album.
This sounds like it shouldn't be an aha moment, but um, in chatting with my millennial aged kids, 29 and 34, I realize that kids don't, they may be more technically astute than the rest of us old folks, but they, generally speaking, haven't put any attention behind a ongoing personal archive.
Yeah.
So they turn around and say, "Hey, mom, do you remember where that picture was that?"
Mhm.
And it's a little bit like the responsibility of being the family historian, the family archivist, the one who's capturing all of the birth certificates of the great grandparents. The responsibility to manage the photos is not far behind, right?
Yeah. And I think that's where, and maybe this is a good topic for down the road, because I know some of my photo manager colleagues have given presentations on this, but on talking about what is a legacy,
Mhm.
in terms of your photos and the ephemera that you digitize. But how do we distinguish between a legacy and my Apple Photos library, for example? Like, what's the
Mhm.
difference between, and for me
Cat
it's
pictures.
my mix between my forever library, because my phone backs up there, because I have it, it's got an app, I don't want to lose my phone pictures. But at some point that will be distinctly between, here's the current, and I have to put the current photo somewhere, and they need organizing too. So
Mhm.
it provides a quick and easy way to do that with the new, like with, it's got facial recognition. So immediately any new photos are all sorted by people of the new stuff. It's just going back and identifying the old ones and picking and choosing. And I go through my current ones fairly often to delete what I don't need. Because again, I'm using this as my phone backup. So everything that I take a picture of gets in there, and I don't need them. Like, I'm going to go in that picture. I took that with my phone, the picture of my notebook, and uploaded it to Forever. After we're done, I'm going to go delete it, because I don't need that picture of my notebook
Mhm.
just laying on
Yeah,
my desk.
screenshots and what kind of ice cream should we
Screenshots and
get?
all those things. And
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
and um we send picture. I don't know why my kids and I, my son will go out and take a picture of the flower in the yard and send it to me and go, look at how many acorn squash we have today. I probably will keep some of them. I don't need every single one of them. So it's that, and that one becomes sort of the constant keeping up with. But you're right, a lot of people don't. I gifted all my kids accounts, and quite a few of them, they filled them, but they've like used up all the storage I gave them, but they haven't done any organizing or purging or set up as what is I need to keep. And I think that's something else that, when we work with the old family photos, we probably get better at,
Mhm.
of that ability to declutter.
Yeah, Kathy, have you ever looked at a program called Mylio?
I have, but it was a long, long time ago, Bill. And when I first worked with it, it was new. And when I was speaking earlier about bright, shiny objects, I looked at
Yeah,
it and went, not, no, not going to help me. I understand now. I don't, that it is, a lot of photo managers recommend Mylio as another good program. So I
it's
think they've done a lot of improvement, and customer support has improved a lot.
the customer support's great. Yeah, I've been using them for a couple of years now, and it's got a lot of features I like. It has the facial recognition, and it's pretty good. You
Yeah.
know, but also uh, it'll dedupe.
Yeah.
So it goes in and says, "Hey, you got five of this photo. Do you really need them all?"
Yeah.
The other thing I like about it is it goes in and it pulls from my iPhone, my iPad, from my every place I have that I may have uh, tossed a picture.
Yeah.
It goes in and pulls them all together, keeps them in the cloud, but then duplicates across all the you know I have the same archive on my iPhone as I do on my iPad, as I do on my laptop, as I do on my removable hard drives. So, it gives me some good disaster recovery.
Yes. Yeah.
That's and that actually was one of the reasons I went with that, because I had nightmares of losing 5,000 photos.
Yeah.
And, it works pretty well for me, and I can give access to family members so they can go in and look at them.
Which is really important too. Like that to me is something I look for, is that and also, and I think Leo has it now too, I'm not sure. But what attracted me initially, because Forever's had this since the beginning, is a legacy contact where I can go in and identify someone who, in the event of my death, gets access to my account. And I can specify, it's a bunch of options. I can either have them just be able to access it, and I can have more than one, or I can have them be able to just look at them. I can have them just essentially become me in terms of my account. And then the other thing I like is not a subscription. It's a payment.
Yeah, it has a really easy way to edit metadata too, which was something that I was glad to see,
Bill,
because
a lot of
metadata can kill you on it.
Yeah, a lot of professional organizers I know have started recommending Mylio and are using it to return the collections to clients, because it is easy. It's an easy program to use. So
it's very easy.
Yeah. So, and we were like, when it first came out, we were very impressed with it, but it was very slow on adding features, and it was new. It was a new program, and the support wasn't great. But I understand that it's no longer an issue. So
across the board with all platforms, it's always important to make sure that you hitch to standards, and you retain access to your archives, and all of those kinds of things. Metadata is a form of standards-based information flowing about stuff. So always good platform independent principles.
And we did a Kathy's Corner on that at some point, Barbara.
I think we did. Who are those smart people?
A non agnostic software choosing talk. We did, yes.
We did indeed. We did indeed.
And everybody, people, you get your favorites, and like I said, I've just decided that at this point, I don't want to learn it. I don't want to learn anything new. If what I've got works for me, that's what I look for, is this doing what I want it to do? And if it's doing what I want it to do, then I'm like, okay, and do I think it's going to hang around for a while? Then I'm like, okay, if this does what I want it to do, and I'm confident that it'll be around for a while, and can I get my stuff back out?
Yeah.
Not. That's so.
The solution's the one you're going to use.
So I don't want to end up like Picasso. People who
Okay, let's not go throw anybody under the bus. I was a Picasa user myself, and I had no trouble at all making the migration to Google Photos. I'm just saying.
If you did it when it first happened.
Fair enough.
These days with Picasa these are all in Picasa on my computer. It's a little tougher.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I think, how many people have a disaster scenario they remember in their own photo collection? I'll confess to mine. I trusted Apple Photos, and when it was called iPhoto, and I'll never do that again. And that's it.
It goes back to when I say I've shown that where I have all those photos on that external drive, which actually is a drive in my computer. It's not an external, it's a spare drive inside my computer. They're backed up. Those aren't the only place it is. It's the same as the stuff in my Forever account. The things that are like my current stuff, I have to say I haven't downloaded and backed it up, but it will get backed up. And I don't keep anything only in one spot.
Right.
Yeah, I think I have mine in about 8.
By comparison, I have my grandmother's the records that my grandmother used to compile a genealogy book in the middle of the, 19th century or 20th century. Nobody knows where those files are. Nobody knows where those boxes are. They're all preserved on paper. You betcha. No digital nonsense is going to mess them up, except nobody knows where they are.
Where the paper is, yeah.
Where the paper is.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we'll ever find them, but
what other
thrift stores.
I don't want to call them pain points, but what other blocks or challenges are you facing with all your digitized stuff, or in any other things of your organizing?
I think one of the big things about legacy you mentioned earlier, and what a legacy is and how you protect it and not getting it mixed up with what a backup is or what your working photo. I think that when you mentioned that would be a really good thing to discuss, because I think if you've set up something like Forever and you're planning to use that for your legacy, but you're then giving people access to it and they can do things with it, then it's not an archive. And equally, it's definitely not a backup as well. So I think, I don't know what other people think about that, but getting that square in your head when you start to set these things up is really important, and knowing your backup's got to be completely independent. And then if it is it something that's just for sharing, in which case families can interact with it, or is it your legacy, or is it your archive? They're all big things to sort out, I think.
It is. That's a really good point, Anne. And it's something that I'm thinking about, because with the 2 accounts I've set up for my husband's family and for my mom's family, my side of the family, I want people to add photos to them, and I've decided I might need to get them to help me do the adding who they are and when these pictures were taken. But I also am reluctant and those won't be the only copies of the photos that I put up there in that public, in a sharing account for people to add to, because I don't want to lose, like, once I get the best quality scans up there, I don't want somebody to go, oh, I have a picture of that, and take mine out and put theirs in. It's much like when people go and change stuff in your family search, where you go, oh, that's not my grandfather. You are whoever you were who thought this was him. It isn't. And it would be the same.
I share my photos, but I don't, it's just inconceivable to me that they would have access to remove anything, period, end of story. They can explore the albums that I have set up for them. They can add comments. And admittedly, I haven't even had anybody even ask to add photos. They might send me photos various ways and let me do it. And it never occurred to me to even let them in.
No, and I think that's
I don't.
a good way to have it set up. And that's, where with my sharing, I can decide what level, when I share an album with somebody, I can either say, much like we share our Google Docs, I can give you editing privileges, I can give you downloading privileges, or I can give you just look at this only privileges. And I think that's part of deciding, and with if I put up, this is done and it's the legacy, then I don't want any, you can send me an email and say, hey, you know what? I got this picture that should be in there. And I'm going, great, I'll take it. But don't muck around with what I've in there, because if we're doing this work, we're generally not putting up things that we haven't checked or researched.
I would argue that a legacy archive, and Anne, you've thought a lot about this, and Kathy, I would argue that a legacy is to put together a legacy archive. To me, it's different from an archive, for starters. And second, it is kind of a project that just has an ongoing timeline until I give up the goat and give it to somebody else. Am I wrong in conceptualizing it that way?
I've been thinking about this, what people have been saying in terms of the We Are archive, because I have a family history archive on We Are, which I can invite people into at various levels that they can do things. At the moment, I've invited my kids to it, but they're just viewers because they're not interested in doing anything anyway. But at some point, I would want to make them admins of it if I get close to thinking I might be dropping dead soon, because I do want someone to be able to, well, keep it and add to it if they want to when I can't.
Mhm.
So whether that's a legacy or an archive, or I don't know. But I tend to scan and add as I'm developing stuff on there. So although I've got some stuff already scanned, and that's on a messy heap in my computer, which needs organising. But I'm trying to organise it as I add to the archive, the family history archive on We Are. So
Well,
Back
and I
again
think you
to the
make a very good point, Jane, is that, and I think the legacy and archive may be different things. And again, it's sort of back to where you have to talk about what your terms mean. But what you're saying, to me, the archive is all, it's my mess on my computer isn't an archive, it's a backup right now of everything. It's a backup of those print photos so that if I have a natural disaster, I don't lose all those photos. It's simply right now, it's called a backup. It becomes an archive when I finish, um, when I get that all done, where it's all organized and in its place where I'm not going to do anything else to it. Does that make sense? Then that becomes the archive, or beyond a backup, in that it's not just a backup for safety's sake. It's now the backup. And the legacy, I may have things, to my way of thinking, I might put things in the legacy that aren't in my archive. I might keep more in my archive. Like I think we've talked about that, where Barbara says storage is cheap, you can keep everything. But in the legacy that I want to share, I may not keep everything. Anne's going like, no, I might not keep everything in my legacy. I might
okay, now we're on point counterpoint. Go on, Anne.
I think it doesn't really matter what the difference between a legacy and archive is, as long as you know what it is in your mind and you write it down somewhere and pass it on with your legacy so that your heirs know what it was all about as well. I think, as Kathy said, it is about defining the terms, and different things will mean different things to different people. But I think if you've got that square in your own brain, what you think it is, and can share that, then that works fine.
What an elegant diplomat. So there are key variables here that can be crisscrossed and applied to different words. Some of the variables relate to things like, is this going to survive you as what you've received in and will pass down? Put the word you want next to that. Is it something that is going to be the recovery for all of the other forms that the image had come in? You were using the word backup. I wouldn't use it that way, Kathy, but that's another way. It's like, to me, that's the compilation of all images. And then I also have that backed up, and I feel guilty that I don't also have it archived, because to me, backup is work in progress. And if it's just a compilation and it's still doing stuff being done to it, it damn well better be continuously backed up. Not that thing, a copy of it is continuously backed up. And then when I create a project that has a specific goal and a set of things about it to accomplish a thing, then I might also create an archive of that. So that's why I ask, because the term We Are likes to use the word archive, which actually works very well in talking with family and so on. So Jane, mine has like 20 people, 30 people, something like that. They don't go in there that often. A whole separate conversation. I use Substack in front of that. But I create a copy of that to be the archive of it. And then it is a better structured way to present my family to my family and passing it down.
Well, and I'll even throw another monkey wrench into the picture here. Is I envision that my legacy, the family legacy, will be organized by people. I envision my archive to be organized by date. I knew that would blow Barbara's mind right out of water. And as artificial intelligence and everything advances, that's probably no longer a necessary distinction. But
yeah, I mean,
the legacy account I'm creating right now for my client is both. It's indexed by people with a people index feature, and the files are all going in by date and will be keyworded by theme. But the main organization structure, and I'll give you a good example as to why. So I've uploaded a whole bunch of stuff from 1970 to 1972. And even as I was going through to make sure the upload, because I uploaded it, but I got to make sure it uploaded. Actually, I got to make sure I check it. And I'm continually messed up because of the program automatically reverts to upload date. And so I go in and look at my beautifully organized 1970, all done by month, and they're all out of whack. And I'm like, and I go, oh no, I got to go in and say sort by name because they're all renamed. And then in the people files, we can just open up any image to see when it was taken, but we can go in and look at all the pictures of my mom, for example. And then because and this would depend again, would be personal, but with this family, they were huge into golf tournaments, and that is something they want to be able to search for, is this particular golf tournament that they participated in from 1957 till 2006, and got mugs and towels and all sorts of stuff every year that we took pictures of, all however many there were, because they were all still there. So they also did several charity. They donated money to build concert halls. And so we want to be able to not just look at the name of the person, like we don't want to just look at the couple who did all this, because that's going to give us a whole bunch of stuff. And we don't want to just look by year, because stuff happened over a number of years. So a tag that says name of the hall will enable them to quickly pull out all those photos. And I think it's something to think about in your things. I was looking the other day, and fortunately these are back in some of the ones that are actually organized, is we spent a lot of summers up at my cousin's cottage at a place called Lake Baptiste in northern Alberta. And I can have a tag that says Lake Baptiste. So I was trying to find, because my son and his cousins were back up there last year, and I was making them recreate photos from when they were kids. And so we got a photo of the four of them riding in the back of the boat, that matches when they were little, and now they're big grown men, and recreated those photos. But I needed to be able, it was quickest to find them. Like, I didn't remember what year they were from. And I would have had to go through an awful lot of pictures looking for any of their names, because they're in a lot of pictures. So it's just another way that if there's something that's meaningful and common, like to me, and I'm using that term not because I won't care about where the location is, but I'm using it because that's what we referred to. We don't call it, like we always said, we're going to go to Lake Baptiste. So that would be the term. It much like if I want to make a tag for my dog. Although the other day facial recognition identified my dog in several pictures. So there you go.
I have more pictures of my cats than I do of my kids.
Kind of creepy, yeah.
Right.
But it was right too. It's like, oh, had a couple of mistakes in there. It had a couple of people who thought were my dog, but anyway. So that's to me is a use of metadata, of tagging in terms of photos, because that way I don't know necessarily how much would be. I'm not in this client, I'm not going to go through and put a location in every single photo. We're going to use tags. It's much faster than to try and do individual photos. Like we can bulk tag, where we'd have to go through and these people they were all over the world. Well, not the world, North America. They traveled a lot all over the States and lived in a whole bunch of different places. So it becomes, in some places they were only in for less, like they lived there for like 3 months and moved on. So it's like, yeah, how much metadata how much time do you want to spend putting that into the actual metadata versus just tagging? Because I feel like when I first started doing this, it was very important that it be in the metadata, and metadata was critical. With all the advances in AI and everything, I'm less convinced of how much of it's needed. And that's what a lot of people didn't do before, because to pay someone like me to do it was very expensive. And so I'm kind of happy now that I can quickly do something similar and can do that with my own photos without quite the same amount of time-consuming
Okay.
additions of metadata. But anyway,
Yeah.
I could go on, but I think we've talked for an hour already.
So are there any guidance for next month's program? I know I have 5 boxes I finally hauled off of the high shelves up here to, I mean, that was a big task, to begin the next part 2 of my massive scanning effort. That's my confession for what I need to do. How about anybody else?
Yes. What's next?
No, I still have all sorts of stuff to scan. I mean, I was just looking. I said 5,000. I have 13,000 photos scanned right now, and I probably have that many more to go.
Yep.
Because relatives keep sending me boxes of photos before they kick off.
It never ends, Bill. It never ends. Just when you
I know.
and then another box appears on the doorstep.
Yeah.
Well, that is kind of the point of legacy, isn't it? It
Yeah.
never ends. Just thought I'd stick that in there. That's how it's supposed to work. All righty then. Well, I don't want to be pressuring anybody to true confessions, and I'm not sure I want to report on how far I've made, what progress I've made next month. So I just slipped it in there. And wish everyone a very a productive few weeks ahead as we slog on and keep finding interesting stories and truths in these magical records we have from our families. And I want to thank you, as always, Kathy. Stay tuned for the recording. And this, like all of them, are at projectkin.org/Kathy's Corner. And we'll keep it going. Same bad time, same bad channel. See you in September, if not, like next week, this weekend.
Maybe in August too.
Oh, right. This is only July.
Unless you're giving me a month off, then.
No, I'm planning for August, so I'm thinking of next month is September.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, all righty. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.